Hello, everybody. Welcome to RSP podcast with me, Rajjan and Parmar. I'm here with Anna Frenkel, who is a teacher, linguist, and author of the book Q&A: A Day for Travelers. Thank you for coming on.
Hello, thank you for having me. This is so exciting.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you on. How are you doing? So you're based in Canada at the moment?
Yes, I'm in Canada right now, and it's okay. Like, luckily, the situation here is getting a bit better, but it still feels like it's taking a while.
Yeah, I think that's the same. It's the same here, really. I mean, I don't know, like our Prime Minister and government isn't being too clear on what they want or what's going to happen in the next few weeks.
Yeah. Luckily, we're going into phase 2 starting tomorrow, so hopefully things will be getting a bit better after that. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see. But so tell us about your book, Q&A: A Day for Travelers. What is it? What is it about?
Yeah, okay. So basically, so I'm a writer. I've always written my whole life. And even throughout my travels, I've always kept a travel journal with me where I've just written like reflections and cool conversations and anything. And basically, throughout my travels, people have just been approaching me, like literally strangers at a restaurant will come up to me being like, "What are you writing about?" And so I would say, "Oh, I'm just, writing about my travels or day-to-day experiences." And so many people would be like, wow, that's so cool. I wish I could do that. Like, I could never just write in a blank journal. So I realized that there's no tool to help people who travel document their experiences. So I decided to create one. So basically, what the book is basically like there's a question every single day. And so the question is related to travel within your own country, within your own city, or worldwide. And it's just kind of questions that help you reflect on your adventures.
So
Yeah,
it's
that's kind of what the book is about.
so it's like kind of like it's like kind of like like almost like a diary in a way. You just keep
Yeah, exactly.
and it works for and
Yeah.
I mean you do it when you're at home as well. I'm guessing just like what sort of questions etc. come up.
Yeah. Okay. So I made a variety of questions. So some questions are, why do you travel? So kind of big, like philosophical travel questions. And then other questions are targeted towards traveling around your home, like your hometown. So I would say, what's a gem within your town that you would recommend to other people? Or it could be planning future trips. So if someone were to give you a ticket to go anywhere tomorrow, where would you go and why? So I kind of put in a bunch of different questions just so everyone is able to answer them. And there's 3 spaces. So you actually answer your questions over 3 years. So you answer one question a day, and then you continue it the next year and the year after. So after 3 years, you can actually see how you've changed as a person, which I think is pretty cool.
I think that's really cool. I think that's a really cool idea for a book actually.
Thank
But
you.
so I suppose let's get a good idea of who you are. That question that you just asked me, if someone gave you a plane ticket, where would you go?
Ooh, it's so hard, and it's funny because I wrote it and I have such a hard time answering it.
It's a tough one.
I
I think I
mean,
have an idea in mind, but I want to know yours.
yeah, so okay, if COVID were to end today, I would be running to Brazil. Brazil is just a country where it's my happy place. Like the people there are so warm, the food's amazing, and the views are incredible. So I think I would just run to Brazil. Even though it's a place I've already been to, I would love to go back again.
I would love to go to Brazil. On one of my recent podcast episodes, I had a friend come on, and he's been to Brazil 2 or 3 times now, and he loves
Yeah,
it. He loves everything about it. He says he loves like you say, the music, the food, the people. It sounds
everything.
really really awesome. But so where else have you traveled? Let's start from the beginning. Where do you come from? And where did you start?
Yeah.
How did you start traveling, and how did this book sort of develop?
Yeah, okay. So as you said before, I'm from Canada. So both my parents are immigrants. They're both Russian immigrants. And like most immigrant families, I have family all over the world, which is really lucky. Well, not lucky in some senses because I can't always see them, but lucky in the sense that I always have places to visit, places to stay. And so throughout my whole life as a kid, a lot of my friends in the summer would go to like sleepaway camps, but instead my parents would send me off to Europe or to other places just to visit family, which at the time, as a kid, you're kind of annoyed because you want to be with your friends. But
Yeah.
looking back, that really, I think, inspired me to visit new places and, yeah, just to really explore. So I think growing up, I traveled Europe quite a bit. And then when it was time to figure out where I wanted to study abroad, I actually got a scholarship to study in Jerusalem. So as you said, I'm a linguist, so I study languages and I know Hebrew and I really wanted to learn Arabic. So I felt like Jerusalem was the perfect place for me. So in my third year of university, I ended up going to Jerusalem for the year, fell in love with it, and traveled while I was there. And while I was there as well, I also met my now fiance, who is Chilean, so he's South American. So with him, I've explored a lot of South America. We've traveled kind of all over. So yeah, that's kind of the story so far.
Wow, it's I mean, so let's go back. So you say you're a language teacher and you went into Jerusalem and Israel.
Yeah.
So what you and I mean you loved it. Did you live in Jerusalem, in the new city, in the old city?
Yeah, I lived in Jerusalem, in East Jerusalem. So I
Mm.
know you said that you've been there before.
Yeah.
So at Hebrew University. So yeah, it's a bit, well, Jerusalem, it's pretty small.
Yeah.
But yeah, I lived there in the dorms.
Oh wow. But so I mean, you have really fond memories of living there. But I mean, the reason I reached out, and the reason you volunteered was I wanted to get this perspective from traveling as a woman in the Middle East, because
Yeah.
I mean, I had friends when I was out there. A lot of them had very mixed experiences. But it's also interesting that you actually lived there for a year as well, because
Yeah.
I found after being there for 2 weeks, I mean, I had my own ideas on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, but when you arrive, it just gets blown out the water, doesn't it? It's such a complex place.
Yeah. So like I had been to Israel prior to my year abroad. Like my dad is Russian Israeli. I have family there. So I had like a more of a better understanding. Like I had been there, I think, twice before. So I knew kind of like the religious expectations of like how you are to dress modestly. And also I'm a smart traveler. I'm not like before I travel, I make sure that I learn a bit about cultures, what's expected. Like right now I'm wearing a crop top. I wouldn't be able to walk around in Jerusalem in a crop top. Well, in certain areas you could, but you know what I mean? Like you need to be smart when you travel.
Mm.
So, and also, okay, so I'm going to talk about what it's like being a girl when you travel in the Middle East.
Yeah.
But I think it's also important to note that like my experience is not the same as anyone else's. So I'm someone that's really relaxed. I don't care what other people think. I'm a smart traveler. And I also try to understand other cultures. So I don't get offended if someone tells me, your skirt's too short when I'm in a religious area, because I understand that in their culture, that's unacceptable. So I don't take it personally. So I think as a girl in general, so whether you're in the UK, in Canada, you are more self-conscious of your surroundings, no matter where you're going. Like every girl has had the experience of you're walking home at night and you're keeping your keys in the middle of your fingers in case someone attacks you. It sounds horrible, but it's a shared experience amongst every single girl that I know. So while being in the Middle East, there are certain, and the same is true with Brazil, with Morocco, with a bunch of other countries that I've been to, is there are certain areas that you choose not to go to, and there are certain areas you choose to go to. And I'm sure it's the same for where you live in the UK as well. Like there are certain areas that you go to and you choose not to. I think boys, like at least the boys that I know who I traveled with often, they do have it a lot easier. Guys are able to walk around wearing no matter what. They're able to walk around alone and no one will bother them. As a girl, I know I've experienced once I got off at the wrong bus stop into like a really religious Muslim area and I was wearing shorts and like immediately people were yelling at me, catcalling. But I had realized like, yes, obviously it's a scary experience, but I had made the mistake of getting off in a neighborhood that maybe I wasn't supposed to be in, dressed the way I was, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think as a girl, you just have to be more aware of your surroundings. You have to be aware of which neighborhoods maybe you shouldn't be going to alone or going to at all, dressed the way you are. And yeah, I don't know if that makes sense, but that's just my experience in general. Like it's just being more cautious.
No, that does make sense, and that makes complete sense. And I think it's easy as well is to look at it from the other complete opposite point of view of yours, is that people go to these places thinking with that Western mentality, I should be able to wear what I want. It doesn't matter.
Exactly.
And it's just you're stepping into someone else's world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And it's really hard sometimes to go into a culture that you know nothing about and say like, wow, I can't believe these men are yelling at me, which is fair. Like I do have that concern, but at the same time, it's like you have to understand that not every culture is the exact same as yours. But I think where like what really stood out to me was not in Jerusalem, but actually in Morocco. I hope it's okay to shift. But Morocco was a country where I really felt that me being a girl stood out, and not always in a good way. Even though, like, yes, I was wearing like long skirts, like long sleeves. I have blue eyes, and so I was told by some friends that I should be wearing sunglasses just to not bring attention. But Morocco was a country where I was like, wow, I'm a girl and I am outright treated differently. Like 90% of the cafes are for men only. So I had to ask like guys that I knew to buy me a coffee because I wasn't able to go into like the coffee shop. Often places only had one washroom for males because like women are supposed to be at the house. So I think for me, that was a country where I was like, wow, being a girl right now sucks. Yeah. And like, yes, culturally, women are expected to be at home, but that's not what I'm used to. As opposed to Jerusalem, it's like, yes, okay, there are certain areas where I shouldn't be wearing certain things, but no matter where I go, whether it's a religious Jewish neighborhood, a religious Muslim neighborhood, or even Christian neighborhood, I'm able to go into a coffee shop or even talk to a male without it being an issue.
I mean, that's really surprising. I've never heard that in Morocco. Was that in rural Morocco or even in like the cities?
No, everywhere. So in like the more tourist areas, like in downtown Marrakesh, you'll see there are cafes that are built for tourists. But if you go to Fez or Rabat, anywhere, it's mainly men-only cafes. So you only see men sitting outside, and they don't serve women.
Wow, that's really interesting. I'm now actually just thinking about it as well. When I was in Morocco, I went to Fez, and now thinking about it, the only time I did ever see women in the restaurants or cafes were when they were with older male family members.
Exactly, yeah.
That's and so even then, interesting. I never saw that.
So there you go. So as a male, you wouldn't think about those things, but as a girl, like they really stand out to you, right? Like getting a coffee for me is nothing. It's just like a walk in the park. Yeah. But once you're told you're not allowed to just because you're female, that's when it like really stands out.
That's crazy. But even like, for example, I did hear stories like that in Jordan in the Middle East, but obviously it wasn't even that bad there. Like, I mean, I have traveled with girls in Jordan. We never got told we have to go sit upstairs or anything like that.
But that's because they're with you. If it was only girls, it could have been a totally different situation, right?
Yeah, but actually, one of my friends, she arrived in Jordan just before us, and she said she had that similar experiences, that she was with males, but they had to go sit upstairs because she was a female. What he said though, he said that he thinks that people would be he was like, in general, most people in Jordan, they're a bit too polite to say anything now because obviously they're getting more of an influx in tourism. But when did this happen to you in Morocco?
I was in Morocco just last year.
So recent then. So it is recent. I mean, I think as well. Like I've had experiences in Morocco where just they do some people. You get those people who they say, come around, I'll take you around the city for free, and then at the end they get money from you. And then one of them got really aggressive towards us as well. He threatened to like cut me or something, I assume.
Right. And so I've heard more experiences from guys saying they've been mugged or threatened, whereas for girls it's just a different kind of threatening. Like I don't know how to explain that, but even like in Turkey, for example, before I went, I spoke to a friend. I just traveled. It was me and two of my girlfriends. And I said, is there anything I should expect culturally, like as a girl traveling? And she said, eye contact is something that's a no-go for girls. So when you're traveling in Turkey, eye contact is seen as a sign of intimacy. Whereas it's funny because in North America, that's a sign of confidence. Yeah. So in Turkey, if you're to speak to a guy, like let's say someone working at a shop, you're not supposed to give eye contact. You're supposed to look away while speaking. So I think it's just being aware of different cultural norms and just trying to adapt to them. And I hope that makes sense.
No, it doesn't. I think as well, going back to what you were saying about how you can't really explain it, by the way you talk about it, it sounds is more just like an atmosphere of uncomfortableness. Is that fair to say?
I think, well, it's not uncomfortable. It's just being aware. So yes, like to some people, it could be uncomfortable not being able to sit at a coffee shop. For me, it's like, okay, wow, that's a reality here. Like women here are treated differently. and I have to be respectful of that. Do I agree with that? No, but I come from a different culture, and I'm a feminist and I have different expectations.
Yeah,
so it's just being aware of that. Yeah. But again, like going back to Jerusalem, like in no way did I ever feel different because I was a girl. I just had to, dress differently in respect of different religious sites and cultures, but I was never treated like unfairly, and I always felt comfortable. So that was the difference. Like, I don't know if I'd be able to live in Morocco for a year with those, types of situations, as opposed to Jerusalem. I loved it. Like, I felt fine.
That's cool. I suppose as well, like, I mean, I felt Israel felt a bit more European to me than
and I'm sure if you were in Tel Aviv also, like, it totally feels European. Every city is so different.
Yeah. I was looking at the old city in Tel Aviv today just online. When I was there in Israel, it didn't appeal to me that much. I was just so excited for Jerusalem.
Oh, really? Jaffa?
Yeah. I was excited for Jerusalem and the Palestinian territories as well. Did you travel there?
I did, yeah, but the only issue is because I am Jewish, like, we were informed like that we shouldn't go. I did still go, but I didn't spend as much time as I'd wanted to. And as well, like, because I was studying full time and I wasn't able to miss class, I wasn't able to travel as much as I wanted to. Like, I definitely want to go back, but I did spend time there. And again, like, when I was there, dressing respectfully, but also dressing to not bring attention to yourself. And I think that's a big thing while traveling too. And I don't know if you experience that as a guide, but for girls, like, and actually just as a tourist, like, I don't want to bring attention to myself. Like, I
dress as plainly as I can. I dress as plainly as I can whenever I travel, just plain trousers, plain t-shirt.
Right? Yeah.
Sorry, you broke up there. So repeat that.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I just said, like, you don't want to bring attention to yourself, right? You don't want to seem like a target. Yeah, so you try to blend in and be respectful. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, but at least it sounds like you had a good time. Like, you enjoy your memories over there. Did you? I mean, when you were on the ground, what was your? How do you feel about Jerusalem as a city, the society there? And I mean, when I came back, I mean, I feel very confused about it. I have really conflicting views about the society and the things you see. And I mean, living there for a year, you must have had way more of a view on it than I do.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Jerusalem is a really special place, and it's really different than the rest of Israel, I would say. And another thing is, because I was studying there, like, I was taking courses like healthcare in Israel, like Middle Eastern politics, religion. So I was taking courses which was really relevant to the specific city, which I think also gave me kind of a different perspective. I think Jerusalem is really polarized. So I think that you have a lot of religious Jews, religious Muslims, religious Christians, a lot of very religious people not living really together, but separate. Like, you have Jewish neighborhoods, Muslim neighborhoods, etc. And I think that to me is a bit strange, as opposed to if you travel to the north in Haifa, it's all together. Like, everyone's very secular, but they all live together peacefully. And Jerusalem seems more polarized. I don't know if you felt the same way as well.
No, I think that's a very good way of putting it, actually. But I suppose that as well is that, like, Jerusalem is the contested land, isn't it? I mean, I think you sent me a picture, obviously, of outside when it's you can see the Western Wall, and right on top of it is the Al-Aqsa Mosque.
Yeah.
So there's two of the holiest sites in the world there, and they're very polarized, but they're crammed together as well, isn't it? They're kind of these warring. I mean, if I can use the word, warring factions, all just piled on top of each other.
Yeah, they're all together, and again, like, because all the people that live there, I think, are mainly really religious. Like, that also adds another layer to it, right? Like, I'm not so religious, I'm cultural. So when I go there, I'm like, wow, I can appreciate both sides. I'm not really connected to, like, the religious aspect of it. But if you were to talk to someone that was a religious Jew or religious Muslim or religious Christian, they would all have such different opinions, right? And I think that's what kind of makes the place so, what's the word, like, contested, or people are just so passionate about it.
Yeah, it is.
But I also felt like, I'm not so religious, but I find that when I'm there, I'm so spiritual. I don't know if you felt the same way too. Like, it just feels so peaceful, and like, well, I don't know how peaceful it is, but I just feel at peace when I'm there. I'm
I,
not sure if you felt the same way.
I do know what you mean. There is a sort of comfort in that chaos, isn't there?
Yeah, and you just see like people praying so passionately, and I don't know, it's just an amazing place, and I think it really is it's a place of reflection for me. Like I can sit there and look at all the people and be like, wow, like this is such a special place. People feel so connected. I feel connected spiritually somehow. I can't explain how, but it's just really special. And I don't know if you were like if you went to the market there as well and just around, but it's
Yeah,
just a
I
really fun
spent
place.
about 3 weeks a month there. So I spent
Okay, wow.
Israel, in Jerusalem specifically. Yeah, I was doing volunteering at a hostel, so I was sleeping on their rooftop for free.
Oh, which hostel?
Citadel Youth Hostel.
Oh, I've also stayed there on the rooftop.
Yeah,
It's an
yeah,
amazing place.
it is.
Amazing view.
Yeah, I was sleeping under the stairs, so I managed to get shade from the sun and had Wi-Fi somehow. So it was pretty
But I
good.
mean, but like in that, like I feel so at peace just thinking, like if you're sitting on that rooftop, you hear like it's like there are stars outside. You hear the Arab call to prayer. Like it's sorry, the Muslim call to prayer. It's just such like a spiritual place. Like it's so cool how even though there's so much polarization and arguments, like it's amazing that you can still hear the call to prayer. You still see all these people praying at the wall from all over the world. It's just like an amazing place. I hope that like I don't know, it's just amazing.
No, you're right, and it's beautiful. You see people from Nigeria, Mexico, Indonesia, all China. All these people have come all over the world, and they're crying because this is the most important place in the world to them.
Right.
The
Yeah,
this where they this is where the birth of their religion is, everything they've believed on. It was beautiful.
and I think what I also really appreciate is I know in North America for sure, I'm sure it's the same in the UK, people are really passionate about their political stances and what they think is right. And often people have a hard time talking to people who have different political views than they do. I know, like for me, I hate talking about Trump. Like I think he's an idiot, but it's hard for me to sit down with someone that likes him and try to reason with them. But I know in Israel, it was so easy and to talk to people who are Israeli, who are Palestinian, even if you don't agree with, their what they think is true, it's easy to have a conversation, to hear them out, and they actually sit together with each other and have those hard conversations, even if they don't agree with each other. Like culturally, they're okay to not be polite, to yell, to argue, but then to also walk away and shake hands afterwards. And I think that is so special because I know for me, like that doesn't exist here in Canada, at least usually.
No, no, it doesn't. It doesn't exist in I mean, it doesn't exist in the UK, and I think you're really right, and I think we're in this kind of scary area now in politics where being so liberal is kind of becoming what it's meant to fight. And now some people, they're so liberal that they don't listen to anybody else's views because it doesn't go with theirs. Does that make
Yeah,
sense?
exactly. For absolutely, yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. And I do like I agree in like those liberal views and fights and arguments, but at the same time, I do think it's important to talk to the other person and hear what they have to say. And I think that's what I also really took away from like coming back from exchange is it's okay to have those conversations. It's okay to not always be polite. But what's funny is when I came back, my friends and family said that I became more rude and pushy, which I think is hilarious. How like often if you're exploring a different place, you kind of just get used to people's speech patterns and adaptation. So for example, like once I was on the bus, probably in Tel Aviv or something, and I told the bus driver like, "Oh, can you please give me change?" And a similar story, I went to the market and I said, "Oh, can I please have like 5 apples?" And they
Yeah.
always like looked at me. They're like, "Why please?" Because in Canada we're like known for being so polite. We say please and thank you, but for them it's like, hey, we don't have time. Like we gotta keep it going. Like
Yeah.
being polite is just not a normal thing. So when I came back, I had that reverse culture shock. I don't know if you've ever experienced that either.
No, I think you're right as well, and it's especially particularly in the Middle East, where, like, for example, if they see their friend on the other side of the road, they just start shouting, don't they? They're like,
Oh
"Oh,
yeah,
come here, come here, come here!" Yeah, and
exactly. And they're so loud. Yeah.
it's this weird kind of sense of like, is that like we know, like we know you're being polite by being rude, right? Is that
Yeah.
you can feel comfortable with us, that you can just talk how you want.
Yeah, and I love that. Like one of my favorite memories actually is in Jerusalem. I'm sitting on a bus going somewhere, and this old lady next to me is peeling a grapefruit, and she goes, "Do you want half?" And I was like, what? Like, it was just so culturally different. She literally was like, do you just want half my grapefruit? Like, it was just so natural. Or like a bus driver once said, like, hey, do you have a place to go for the holidays? Like, you're welcome to come to my house. And like culturally, it's so funny because in North America, where it's so cold, whereas in the Middle East, the culture, they're just so much warmer. And I love it. Like, that's what I really love about traveling, is learning about these different cultures and expectations and just norms that don't exist where I come from.
Yeah, that's exactly. I mean, that story with the grapefruit. I mean, can you imagine if someone? I mean, the same in the UK. If I
Oh
was on
my God.
if I was on a bus and someone offered me a grapefruit, I would be so taken
You'd
back.
be so creeped out. You'd like walk away, you'd change spots, but
Yeah,
there it's just so normal. Like, it's just
yeah,
a sign of like, I'm not going to finish this, have the rest. Yeah,
yeah.
it's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, let's go. I mean, moving on a little bit. I mean, I think this is the same as well. Like culture it links in is that I find it is the same in like South American people as well have that kind of like
Absolutely.
that kind of rudeness which shows that they like you in a way. And
Yeah,
but I
absolutely.
mean, I mean, we mentioned it earlier that you've traveled a lot in South America, haven't you?
Yes, yeah. So I love South America. It's my favorite continent, if I can say that.
Yeah.
Again, yeah, it's the warmth, it's the views. I love nature. There's so much nature there, and I love South America. I'm actually supposed to be in Peru today, but
Uh,
obviously,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, but so where have you traveled? Because I think you've told me you've been to Mexico, Brazil, Bolivia, and Chile, right?
Yeah, yeah. So Mexico's in North America, but for South America, yeah, like Chile, Argentina, Brazil, Bolivia, kind of just as many places as I can go to. But it's really interesting. I don't know if it's the same in the UK, but for North Americans, we mainly, like in school growing up, North America is the center of your world.
Mm.
So we only basically like learned about North American geography, North American history. And so when I was old enough to travel, I was like, oh, I have to go to South America. But as a girl, and I think as a North American, my first instinct was, oh, it's so dangerous. Like, I would never go there. And
Yeah.
I don't know if you had the same experience. And also, I was like, oh, South America is so small. But when I started traveling there, it's like, well, first of all, South America is a massive continent. So even though I would love to like run around and go to every single country, Brazil in itself, for example, is like a huge, huge, huge country that I just never realized because we never learned about that at school.
I
So I
think
know.
it's something like Brazil is the size of mainland Europe put together or something. Brazil is massive. It's so vast.
Yeah, it's huge. And once you go there and you visit like all of South America, you realize that like, your preconceived notions are definitely not true at all. I don't know if you had the same thing. Like if your first inclination of South America is like, oh, it's dangerous, but I know for North Americans it is, and it's really
Yeah.
sad, I think.
No, I think that is true as well because I think I mean particularly my generation grew up in a era where we sort of glorify Pablo Escobar and the cartels where it kind of still has that reputation of particularly Colombia and stuff has that reputation of being a gangland, and I'm sure in some places it is very dangerous. I mean I have friends who grew up in Colombia that says there are areas of it which are still very dangerous, but it's the same as anywhere,
Yeah.
isn't it?
Yeah, again, like as I said even before, like there are certain places that you don't go to and certain places that you do go to. Like even in, Toronto in Canada, like there are certain areas that you just don't go to
Yeah.
because they're not so safe. Obviously, like, Brazil, Mexico, Colombia, they do have, more dangerous areas that you don't go to. But as a tourist, like you just have to become aware. You have to be a smart traveler. And I keep on saying that because it's true. Like you have to travel smart. You don't
Yeah.
just wander around. But actually, one of my favorite stories is from Brazil, where I really learned to be a smart traveler. So I went for the first time. I went to Rio with my sister, and we were like two North American girls, like la la la, like let's just run around Brazil. But I obviously had heard in the news, Brazil is quote unquote dangerous. You have to be aware of your surroundings. And so I usually wear a watch. It's like not an expensive watch, but I wear a watch. And so I decided, okay, well, I'm not going to wear this flashy watch when I go to Brazil. So I'm going to go to Walmart and buy like a cheap watch. So I literally bought the cheapest watch. I think it was $5. And I wore it in Brazil. And as I was in Brazil, a lady approached me and said, sorry, miss, I think it's a good idea for you to take off your watch. And I was
Really?
like, excuse me? And she's like, yeah, I can tell that you're a tourist from the color of your skin. And I think you need to take off your watch because you don't want to be a target. And I looked at her and I was like, this watch is literally $5. Like, why is it making me a target? And she said, well, it doesn't look like it's $5. So that kind of goes back to the point of like, being aware of your surroundings, also trying to blend in with other people. You don't want to make yourself stand out. But it's just the idea of being a smart traveler. So even though a country may be dangerous, you just have to be aware of, the way you look, the way you dress, you don't like where you go, etc.
Yeah, that makes. But I mean, what would you say is the safest way to get around Brazil, to visit different cities in Brazil? Which is the safest way?
I mean, so it's actually interesting. Uber is really safe.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because you would think like, oh, Uber isn't safe. It totally is safe. I've taken Ubers multiple times. It's totally fine. I've taken city buses. It's totally fine. It's more about, I would say it's more about making yourself not being a target. So another story is another lady that lived there approached me and said, you're not holding your purse correctly. You need to hold your purse in front of your body and not to the side. So it's more, I would say it's more just being aware of who you are as opposed to how you get around. Yeah, like taking public transit is totally fine. But sorry, one more story about Brazil. Like I think Brazil is a place. It was actually the first South American country that I went to, and it was also the first wake-up call of, being aware. So once I was at a hostel, and I was trying to get to the art district, and my hostel, like the hostel concierge, gave me the instructions of how to get there. So he said, you get off the subway, you cross the street, and you wait for the bus. So I got off the subway, I crossed the street, and I was waiting for the bus. And I'm waiting and I'm waiting and I'm waiting. And oh man, I just realized my mom doesn't know this story and she would kill me. So hopefully she won't listen. But basically we're waiting and we're waiting. And all of a sudden this old man comes up to me and is yelling in Portuguese. And I'm like, what? I'm sorry, like I don't speak Portuguese. And he goes, you're standing on the most dangerous corner of all of Rio de Janeiro. Like this is where people get kidnapped. Like look right behind you. That's like the most dangerous favela. And I'm like, oh, but there's a police station right next to me. And he's like, the police here don't work.
Yeah.
And he said, where are you trying to get to? And I'm like, I'm trying to get to the art district. And he goes, well, you crossed the wrong side of the street. So he was so lovely because he walked me to the right side of the street. He like waited till I got on the bus, which I thought was amazing. And which really talks about how, passionate and how caring Brazilian people are. But it's like, it's not about which modes of public transit are the safest because they all are. It's just being aware of your surroundings. Like I should have double checked the name of the street because one street could be just a random bus stop, but the other street could be a really dangerous area. Yeah. So I hope that didn't scare you about Brazil, but it's just, turning on your brain, being aware of your surroundings and just double checking.
Yeah, no, and I mean, well, it shouldn't scare anybody off it because because we've said before it can happen anywhere. And my friend who was talking about traveling in Brazil, he said the exact same thing. But what I mean, just one thing I'm curious of is it you can, I mean, if you are wearing something and like say your watch or something, can you still get mugged in like even the touristy districts? Like, would they still go for you anywhere?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. I think in any city it could happen. Like, I think it could happen in Notting Hill in London, right?
Yeah.
I think it could happen anywhere. I've been to Brazil twice now, and I've had the best time both times. I do have some scary stories that I'm not going to share that hasn't happened to me, but that I witnessed around. I think you can get mugged anywhere in your own city. It's just, again, like carrying your purse properly, not wearing flashy jewelry to kind of attract attention. I don't usually go out. Like I wouldn't have gone out by myself in Brazil at nighttime, just like stuff like that. But I think what's really interesting to note is as a girl traveling South America, Brazil, I think, is the best country in the world to like when you're talking about, feminism and girl power, I think of Brazil.
Really?
So if you look at a beach in Brazil, and this might be like an eye roll moment for you, but for me, like as a girl, all girls grow up thinking about their bodies, and all girls naturally are raised self-conscious, which might be weird for boys to think about, but that's just how girls
I mean that's I mean that's not surprising at all. I've heard that plenty of times. Yeah, it makes sense, unfortunately.
So before I went to Brazil, one of my family friends who's from there said, they're going to know you're a tourist when you go to the beach. And I was like, why? She goes, oh, because all girls there, they wear like thong bikini bottoms. And I was like, okay, so when you go to the beach, you have all girls of all different body types, shapes, sizes, whatever, all on the beach wearing the same type of bathing suit. And like, which it might sound so, like little or minute or obnoxious, but it's so true. Like as a girl, you're sitting there and you're like, that's amazing that like a girl who looks like that would wear that, and how all girls, they don't care. Like they have this female empowerment kind of mentality there. And I just find it was so inspiring for me.
That is really inspiring, and it's really
Yeah.
interesting as well because you talk about like Brazil. I always think of as well as quite a spiritual country. It's quite Christian as
Yeah.
well. It's pretty amazing that they have that sort of outlook. But I was also speaking with my friend is that they are a bit more sort of sexually open there as well, aren't they?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. But I just think it's like, it's amazing just as a girl to kind of experience the different cultures.
mm.
But yeah, in Brazil, it was just amazing. I find it so inspirational.
But where else have you been there then?
So Argentina was great. I've spent a lot of time in Chile just because I do have family there. My fiance's from there. Um, and where else? Yeah, Bolivia, I think, is probably one of my favorite places as well,
Really?
nature-wise.
Nature.
Yeah,
Yeah. Oh, okay.
yeah.
Okay. So we'll backtrack a bit to Argentina. Where did you travel there? Because I was speaking to someone yesterday, and they were saying if they could go, that was in one of their top 5 countries. If they could go anywhere, it'd be Argentina.
Yeah, so I was in Buenos Aires. I know a lot of people there do Patagonia, but I did Chile and Patagonia.
Yeah.
So I know it's a little, I know people say like, one is better than the other, but I didn't feel the need to do it again in Argentina.
Yeah.
Um, Argentina is amazing. There are certain areas as well that you just have to be more aware of. So I was traveling there again with my sister, and there's a certain area, it's called La Boca, which is like more of a touristy market. And I had heard before going there that a lot of people do get mugged in broad daylight, and that it's not good for girls to travel there by themselves.
Hmm.
And so like when I heard that, my sister is super chatty. So like we just made some guy friends at the hostel we were at, and we just went all together, and it was totally fine.
Hmm.
And again, like we just walked around Argentina by ourselves, had no problem as girls. And I loved it. Like I love Latino culture. As you said before, like they're just so warm and so just sweet. And no matter who you are, they just show this warmth towards you, which I think is so nice.
Yeah, that is really nice. I mean, how do you travel if that makes sense? Like, how do you fund it? Did you save up and then do you go and then go, or do you work while you're? I know obviously you were studying abroad in Israel,
Yeah.
but do you volunteer in hostels to save money, or how do you keep going on the road?
It's a really, really good question that I get quite a bit because I do travel a lot. I don't know, it's hard. Like I've always been a really hard worker. Like as I have immigrant parents, I've always just had that instilled in me. So I've
Yeah.
always had like 2 or 3 jobs. I've always saved up, and like travel is what makes me feel alive. Like I would rather, work my butt off, work 7 days a week, save up all this money to just have like a 3-week vacation where I'm enjoying myself. Like
Mm.
that to me just makes me so happy. But also like when I travel, I'm not like a luxurious traveler. I don't stay at hotels. I don't always eat at like big restaurants. So what I do is if I'm traveling for a long period of time is I'll stay at hostels. Sometimes actually Airbnbs are cheaper. So just do that, like just I do that research. And I often cook my own meals. Like I'll eat in markets and stuff like that, but just to save where I can. And again, places like, well, some South American countries are really expensive, but I was just in Guatemala, for example, and that's really affordable. So just going to places which aren't so expensive, and just again, I keep using this, but just travel smart, and yeah, just not spending money like crazy.
Yeah,
Hope
I
that
think
makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it can be easily done as well. And I think yeah, and as of course you're an example of that as well, is that is that if you just work hard and save money, same with me, is that I traveling makes me feel alive. I don't mind putting in the hour
Yeah.
at a job, putting the money away because I know it'll be good to it'll be good like it's worth spending the money. And the way I extend it, I always work that I've always mentioned this, the way if I can extend it as long as possible is I volunteer in hostels for free.
Yeah.
So that just
Yeah. I've always wanted to do
recommend.
that.
It's
Yeah.
really
The
good.
issue
I
I
would
think now
recommend.
is, oh, sorry.
Go on, sorry, continue. You continue.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, like, I think the biggest issue now, as I see it, is like, so I finished my degree, I worked for 2 years, and now I'm in my master's, so I'm back at school. But I think one of the biggest hardships is when you start work, you have really limited time off. Like you get at least here 2-3 weeks off. That's it. Whereas like as a student, you have a lot more time off. You know, you have long summers. In Canada, you get 4 months off in the summer, like during university. So just taking advantage of that time. Like I know there's a quote that I live by. It says like the money will come back, the time won't. And I think that's what that's like my motto in life. Like I will travel every single minute that I get because I know I'll make the money in the future. Like I'm always going to work. It's just a part of who I am.
Yeah, I think that's actually exactly the same as well. And I do like, I mean, I do always stress that I don't have enough money because I've always tied it up in traveling. Like I know I'll have the money
Yeah.
to go traveling, but I know I don't have the time. Like, you know, I don't have money to enjoy here, buy things that I would like. But that doesn't matter to me because I know that I have so many people, older relatives, who told me I wish I traveled more when I grew up, when I was growing up.
Yeah,
And
exactly. And like, yeah. Yeah. And sometimes it's worth it just to make sacrifices. Like I don't wear like the fanciest clothing. I don't go to eat out all the time here. Like I do make an effort, you know, to cook my meals, to then save money and put money towards traveling. I also have like a travel savings account where every month I put money towards future vacations.
This is what I do, and this is the best way to save money for traveling. Put it in another
Yeah.
account where the card is locked somewhere, and you actually just forget about that money.
Yeah, exactly. I have it as like an auto deposit. I treat it as if like I went out to a fancy restaurant, you know, every month money goes in there. And then when I have the time, I just go and I enjoy. And again, like once I'm there, I'm not staying at the fanciest hotels. Like I'm just enjoying myself, getting to know locals, you know, going to like local places, etc. But yeah, just enjoying life.
Yeah, it's a good philosophy to have. It's a very good philosophy to have. And so one place I want to talk to you about because I haven't actually had anybody come on to talk about it is traveling in Mexico. Is that where to go, how
Yeah.
to stay safe? So give us your experiences there.
So Mexico is actually super easy to get around as a tourist. They have like their city bus called ADO bus. Super easy. Mexico. So I've been to Mexico twice. A lot of North Americans go there as like our spring break, you know, kind of all-inclusive resort experience, which I've had. But I've also had like the local experience where you're traveling by bus, you're going to different little cities. And Mexico is huge. And every, you know, city is so culturally different. So again, I've only been there twice, but I definitely want to go back because I've only experienced, you know, certain provinces, and each province has their own food, culture, their different sleeping arrangements. If that sounds like, I don't know if that sounds right, but for example, like in the province that I went to, they sleep in hammocks because it's just so hot where they live. So there's just like different unique, like culturally unique things that you only see in certain provinces and not others. But in general, Mexico is super easy to get around. There are so many tourists there. Do you have any like specific questions that I can answer?
Well, I mean, I suppose is that what's to see and what's to stay away from is probably the big one.
Yeah, so I think it's all up to personal preference. So I know like Cancun is like the party area, but also they have like amazing, you know, food experiences and beaches. And I went there, even though it's super touristy, I went there and I loved it. But I also wanted to have like the experience of like smaller Mexican towns where I can experience like, you know, I'm a foodie. I love food and cooking. So I went to a place called Merida, which is really beautiful, colorful. It's actually known as one of the safest cities in Mexico. And I went there and I like worked with a chef for a little bit. And so it's all up to what you like. There are certain places which are known for like history and like Aztec culture, like cultural places, which other people can go to if they're into that. There's places which are more, you know, nature focused. So it's all up to where you want to go to. And so I kind of like when I'm doing my research, I look towards the things I want to see versus like where I shouldn't go, if that makes sense. I'm not like, oh, I have to stay away from this area, this area. I'm like, okay, where do I want to go? What's my priority? And like, how do I make it happen safely?
Yeah.
So as I said, like Merida is known to be like one of the safest cities in Mexico. Like locals even say that. It's super quiet and relaxed. They're really beautiful, really colorful. There's another place that I went to called Bacalar, which is known to be like the tropics of Mexico. Like the water is just really bright blue. And from there, you can go to Belize. So I went there because I wanted to go to Belize right after. So it's all about kind of like what everyone's personal interests are.
Oh, okay, all right, interesting. How was Belize? Belize looks really cool, and that's the only English speaking country in the Caribbean, right? Well, not in the Caribbean, in
Yeah.
Central America.
Yeah, Belize, yeah, it's English speaking. I actually didn't really feel so safe in Belize, just because it is like a drug hotspot of Central America. See, I went there and had no idea and was a little bit surprised. So maybe some people should err on the side of caution when planning. But Belize is beautiful. Like the water there is amazing. If you're into like scuba diving or snorkeling, it's a great place. And I loved it. And again, like as a foodie, Belize was incredible. Like the food there is amazing.
What sort of food do they have over there?
They have a lot of like curries and a lot of fresh like seafood. And it's more about the spices. Like I love learning about different spices and flavors. And the curry in Belize is like to die for.
Really?
Yeah, yeah.
Ah, all right, cool. Well, thank you, Anna. I'll start bringing this episode to a close now. So, where can we find your book? Is it out now?
That's so sweet. Yeah. Okay. So it's out. It's out on Amazon. So it's a little bit delayed. Like it was supposed to be in stores now, but obviously it's a bit delayed due to all the travel restrictions and Corona. It's in a few small like independent bookstores, but Amazon's the place to get it.
Oh, all right. Well, thank you very much for coming on. And where can we find you on social media as well?
Yeah. So I have Instagram at anagram12345 creative. I also have like a Medium blog, so medium.com/anagram, where I often write about travel and language and culture. So those are probably the places to find me, or connect on LinkedIn. That's great too.
All right. Thank you so much for coming on. Thank you, listeners.
Thank you so much for having me.
No, it was my pleasure. Let's do it again sometime as well.
Sounds good.
Sounds good. So, yeah, if you want to find the Instagram, it's at RSP Podcast. It's hosted by me, Rajjan Parmar. Thank you very much. Thank you, Anna.
Thank you.
Thank you. And stop recording.